My name is Dylan, and today we're going to start our journey on what I want to call the series of habits. In this series, there'll be multiple videos discussing what habits are, how you can apply them to your life, and which habits to apply to your life, and why this can be life-changing. Our first topic of discussion comes from the New York Times best-selling book, The Power of Habit: Why We Do What We Do in Life and Business by Charles Duhigg. So one of the first things to discuss in this book is how habits work. Now, the key thing that Charles Duhigg mentions throughout the entire book is this habit loop, which starts with a cue followed by a routine and ends with a reward. Now, a cue can be anything from a location to a time, an emotional state, people in the area, or even a previously enacted action. And from that cue, we immediately follow it up with a routine, something that we do, the habit. And after this habit, we end up getting a reward of some sort. And that reward can be many things. It could be just feeling good, but it's usually something that enacts a dopamine release. Now, these habits are what 40 to 45% of our day consists of. Most things that we do throughout the day, from brushing our teeth to even driving to work, are all habitual actions that we've taken so many times that our brain puts us on autopilot mode. Now, the reason that that's important to know is because if 40 to 45% of your day is spent in actions that you are unaware of, well, then it's kind of important to know why you're performing those habits and if those are the right habits to have. So that brings us to our next part. How do we create new habits? Well, in creating new habits, you have to follow the golden rule, which is after identifying a routine, you must find the cue or the trigger and the reward, which are what begins the habit loop. Now, in order to create a new habit or to change an old habit, there's usually 4 steps that you'll have to follow. The first step is obviously identifying the routine. If this is a routine you want to change or a routine you want to add, either way you need to find a routine. So this could be anything from making your bed every morning to flossing your teeth to exercising to writing a to-do list, something that will make you better. Usually, obviously, habits can always break down into bad things such as drinking or smoking. So the second step is looking at what rewards you're receiving from taking these routines and experimenting with them, seeing if maybe it's the joy you feel from taking the action, or maybe it's the reward of feeling good about the action for a future cause, or maybe it's as simple as it just makes you smile. There's got to be something about it that releases a dopamine hit. Now, once you've played around with some rewards to figure out what it is that you're actually feeling or getting from enacting a routine, then the goal is to find what cues those routines. So say, for example, you're trying to break the habit of hitting the snooze button. Well, if the routine is hitting the snooze button and the reward is some extra sleep or feeling good about yourself, right? Well, then you need to figure out how to get to that without losing it. So maybe you find a technique that helps you feel invigorated in the morning regardless if you've gotten enough sleep. And so you can still receive the same reward, although it's a different routine. So now you have to isolate the cue. And again, a cue can be a time, location, an emotional state, other people, or even a preceding action, such as the alarm clock going off. Now that you've isolated the cue and you've determined what the rewards are, the next part is to have a plan. One of the best plans that you can have is an if-when plan. So if this cue occurs, or when this cue occurs, then I will take this routine, or I will take this action. Right? And so that's how you can start to build a habit into your life. Now, one of the hardest things to do, however, is to believe that these changes can occur. And that's one of the most important parts about creating a habit. If you don't believe that change can occur, well, then you're just going through the motions until eventually this habit you wanted to form fades back away. So what you need to do is you need to build that belief in yourself. And this can also be done through building smaller habits. So there's a technique in the book that he refers to called small wins. And these small wins give you this small bit of confidence slowly over time in order to build confidence for when those big changes are going to occur. So if your goal is to wake up early in the morning, Don't set the time for 4:45 in the morning. Maybe set it for 5:45 in the morning if you normally get up at 6, or even 6:45 if you normally get up at 7. Slowly try to dial it back, and that way you can feel you could feel change occurring and gain belief that you can do even more. So how can you make habits work for you? Well, as stated before, you can do these small wins, but now you have to think about what small wins should you go for. One of the best things you can work on are what is known as keystone habits. Keystone habits are habits that affect every other aspect of your life. For example, exercise is an excellent keystone habit. Exercise alone has led to many other habits that can form after that. For example, one keystone habit that I created a few years ago when I first started my weight loss journey was to write down what I was eating, and that's it. And I created a habit around that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And in doing so, I became so hyper aware of what I was eating that eventually I added exercise into one of my habits. And eventually I added yoga, I added, I started eating healthier, just doing various things in order to counterbalance what I was seeing in my life and what I needed in my life. One of the keystone habits that is mentioned in the book is actually very simple. Most people that live a healthy lifestyle happen to eat breakfast every morning as well as weigh themselves every morning, which coincidentally both of those things are things that I added to my life. Now I've always eaten breakfast in the morning, but I haven't always done it on a regular basis with a healthy food. Usually I could alternate between cereal and eggs and donuts. It didn't matter. But now every morning I eat a consistently healthy breakfast of eggs, sausage, and even sometimes starch like tater tots. But either way, it's always something that's filling without making me exhausted just a few hours later. And I'll always have a glass of something like grapefruit juice, which I can talk about in another video that's very helpful in your digestion, and coffee. And coincidentally, I also started weighing myself every day quite a long time ago, and I've been able to track these trends over a long period of time. And from that, I can see what's causing my weight loss and what's causing my weight gains. So it's very important to constantly just be aware of what's going on in your body. Another very powerful habit, a keystone habit that people need to work on, is willpower. Many people think that willpower has a limitless supply, which is completely false. Willpower is like a muscle. If you use it too much, eventually it will tire out. Have you ever noticed that if you're sitting at your office and someone brings in donuts in the morning and you avoid them the entire day and you feel proud about yourself, but then you get home and there's maybe some baked goods on the counter and you're like, just one. Well, that's because all day long you've been using up your willpower. So there's a couple things you can do to remedy this. Well, first off, you can build your willpower. How do you do that? Using what Stoics call the intentional discomfort or something along those lines, where you would specifically seek out discomfort in order to stress your willpower. So it could be as simple as a cold shower in the morning, which I happen to take every morning, and it helps build mental strength, right? And the other thing you can do to fight against the lack of willpower is actually to take things that require a large amount of willpower and turn them into habits. Because habits use very little to no willpower at all. They are something that's done automatically, and therefore you don't have to think about whether to do or not to do something. So for example, if you want to exercise every day, well, that's very hard. It's hard to create that willpower to do so. So instead, if you can figure out how to create a habit, find a cue, find a reward, and build your path into creating that habit, well, now you can reduce the amount of willpower you spend on that and instead use it to avoid those donuts at the office. Now that you have the knowledge and tools to change your life, it is your responsibility to do so. So make the conscious choice to change your life for the better through the power of habit.